a copywriter and marketing strategist, and I have a bent earring today. I always wear Zoom earrings. It's kind of funny. It's like curly hair, which I recently got at age 39. It's brand new to me. Curly hair looks often great in the mirror, but it doesn't always show up as well on camera. So to show you that I have not literally just rolled out of bed, I always toss on my Zoom earrings. So this is Turn Your Messaging into Magic. And our focus here is finding ways to level up your messaging and therefore your marketing so that you can show up better for yourself and to your clients and offer incredible value so that you can build those incredible relationships. So what we spent about 20 minutes talking through yesterday is misconceptions, specifically misconceptions that you have to overcome in your industry. And there's a lot of ways that you can stand out. Simply, let me turn on my light. Boom. And then there was light. There's a lot of ways that you can find to stand out by addressing those misconceptions head on. And so what I am doing is I have this thread that we've been talking about in the Women's Entrepreneur Network Facebook group. And you may be watching this on YouTube or LinkedIn as well, which is right on. Awesome. And I asked the question on Twitter this morning as well. So we'll see, what, if anything, has come through on that. I literally just asked it a few minutes ago. So very possibly not. But there's ways to address the misconceptions so that by the time people come to you, they already know that you're going to offer value and they're a little bit warmer. They're less likely to have some of those objections. And it helps you also to weed out, it sounds weird, the tire kickers, like it's car sales term, right? I never sold cars, among other things. I've done a lot of things though over the last however many years. So some of the things we talked about yesterday were that one social media post is going to make you millions. And of course, one social media post could, but only because you've already done the work to build your audience and to warm them up and to teach them about what it is that you do. So some of the things that I wanted to address today, I'm just going to go through these past comments to see what else people are saying about their industry and how you can maybe turn that specific case study or use case into your messaging. And the difference, incidentally, if you haven't discussed or done yourself, between a case study and a use case is this. Case study is actual results that you've gotten using your actual process, and use case is how you'd approach a specific subset or a problem. So these are actually probably potential uses, right? Potential ways that we could transform your messaging. Sorry, my eyebrows here. I'm always touching my face on the camera. I don't know. Does anyone else do that? So Julie said that the VA, meaning virtual assistant, is a job title versus a professional industry with hundreds of possible service offerings. Spot on, right? A virtual assistant is so much more than all the things, right? Some people could call a copywriter a virtual assistant. I help people make money, right? That's a powerful, insanely cool statement. So what are some of the other things? I help people get their systems in order. VA there's this perception that it's just an assistant, and that's not true. Your VA, if you have a VA or if you are a VA, you know that they are the grease that keeps the wheels running, so to speak. So there's a lot to do. And it's almost like if you are a VA, you have to position yourself based on the service that you offer. My VA is amazing. She is how I stay on top of all my outbound social media. Without her, I might post once in a blue moon, but because of her, I'm able to post more often because we sit down, we map out our content flow. And I have a process that I actually teach. It's called creating content trees, or creating content in 30 days, or creating 30 days of content in one sitting. And it's this really insanely cool process, right, that I follow myself. And that's how we're able to get all this scheduled. So I come up with the ideas, we talk through them together, I write all the things, She makes sure the images get created and posted. Without that, I would be like, you'd see me like very infrequently, except for like showing up in groups. Like I show up in a number of groups that I'm a part of. So that's just one example. But, so I think what you want to address in your copy and in your marketing, if you are a VA, is the outcomes that you offer. So you're not saying I'm a virtual assistant, because different virtual assistants do different things. Some people do email, which is a big pain point for a lot of people. Some people manage schedules. Some people take care of podcast appearances and bookings, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So let's keep going. Something else that we talked about yesterday was that mindset work isn't necessary, but that it's worth the time or investment. And I think there you have to future pace people. You have to say, this is where you are right now. If you don't take action, this is where you're going to continue to be. And if you're okay with that, great. That's what I want for you. I want you to be happy with where you are. If you want something else that's possible, here are some of the possibilities and the things that I've helped people get. Or if you haven't done it yet, that I can help people get. The more actual results that you can show, the better. It builds. It's kind of the snowball effect. So results speak. Crystal popped in and she said that I shouldn't charge that much. It's just data entry work. And that's something I talked about yesterday, right? My least two favorite words in the English language are just and only, with like simple right behind it. Although there's applications of all of them that make sense, because you can simplify all the things, right? Data entry is so much more than what it like. What can you do as a result of that? Like, imagine having all this data ready at your fingertips to use. And your rates are what your rates are. If you're really fast, if you've got experience, if you've got insights, cool. So data entry is one piece, if data entry is the subset, right? But you're probably analyzing it. You're probably helping them figure out what data they need. You're helping them probably go out and get it, and then, come up with some ways to use that data so that they can either improve their marketing or do some of these other things. Melissa had a really interesting one, and it's that solar energy is a scam. And I had never thought of anyone thinking that solar energy is a scam. So like, maybe that's something new to me. I think it's really cool, and I want to do it for my house. I would love to at least be less dependent on the grid for any number of reasons, right? But so Melissa works in permitting, and she has some really interesting things that she does. And so I think regardless of what industry you're in, if someone comes up to you and says, well, what you do is a scam, or this thing is a scam, it doesn't really work, I think you want to ask them why they're saying that. What about this makes you think that? What about this thing that you do, or this belief that you have, what makes you think that? And not to like immediately try to prove them wrong, because it's very, very hard to disprove beliefs, as we've really all learned over the course of the last 2 years. And that's one of the lessons that I learned from my degree in anthropology. You cannot change someone's belief, or you can, but it's not as simple as just showing them the facts. Sometimes it takes a little bit more, and people have to absorb the idea in and of themselves. So if they believe that what you're doing is a scam, I want you to have some statistics ready to show them. Like, hey, it's interesting that you say that. You're actually not the first person to say that, and like address it very conversationally. Like in a one-on-one conversation. And the more of these that you have, you'll hear what some of these common points are, and you can address them in your marketing outreach or your website copy. So for example, one-on-one conversations, you just say, oh, would you be interested in looking at some data that I have, like that I've seen some very real results? Would you be interested in hearing for solar energy, the science of how it works? And if they say no, you say, all right, no problem, thanks. They're probably not your ideal customer anyway, right? However, what if you are I have words in my head. What if you're writing your website copy? And you can talk about the very real results and pop those right in the front page and address that objection right up front, whether it is specific to your projects and what you're helping people accomplish, or whether it's specific to your process, or whether it's just specific to the industry. Here's what it's doing for the world. So um, that's something that's really kind of cool. You know, Laura Kennedy had something really interesting. It was that coffee won't be around, or coffee will be around forever, and not to treat it the same as beer or wine. Um, it's because it's a commodity. And I have so many more questions for her about this. So I think like you have to be prepared to like say, if you've ever thought this, you know, you might be surprised by the truth, or maybe not the truth. If you've ever said this, you know, here are some surprising insights I have for you, because then that piques the interest. People want to know what's going to surprise them. People want to know what's going to make them, you know, what's going to pique their interest. And sorry, my daughter's pediatrician's texting. Yeah, so those are things that you can address. So if there's a scam or a mistruth, you have some really interesting talking points, whether for live video, whether for you know, web copy, whether for outreach, whether for blog posts. Like there's all these things that you can do. Yeah, Kathy was like that bookkeeping is easy. We talked a little bit about bookkeeping. It's not easy. Even if you're a numbers person, like I think I mentioned yesterday, I aced calculus in high school and in college, but bookkeeping math, it's like, you know, there's all these other steps that go into it. And it means that, I mean, it's still good math, right? It's still money in is and money out or should balance theoretically. Theoretically, right? But the difference is here that bookkeeping is and it's a science and an art, right? Because there are some very specific rules, and you don't want someone who's going to be a creative bookkeeper, but you want a bookkeeper who can future pace a little bit, who can both look back at your history and then look forward so that you can start forecasting. Because I think that's really, really important to know. So you need to have financial strategy information. And if you're not there yet as a bookkeeper, don't stress about it, but focus on what you do well and the direction that you're taking things. Dr. Christine Taylor popped in and said that there is a magic bullet to having total body wellness and that it's too expensive. So this is really kind of a cool topic, and it's near and dear to my heart, because remember, going back to just only simple, we can simplify things, but it's very rarely just that easy or just that simple or as easy as, or only doing this one thing, whatever it is that we're solving for, right? But people tend to, and like myself included here, 100%, people tend to be like, so I've worked out for 4 days. Why haven't I seen results? And it's inside, and it takes a while for those results to manifest on the outside. And it's really frustrating sometimes when the progress is slow. And so it's like you didn't get to this point, whatever this point is, overnight. So how can you expect changes? So I think a lot of what people in the health industry need to do is manage expectations, right? It's like, yeah, it's possibly going to be some fairly drastic things that you're going to have to do. But I'll tell you what, I am going to make it, I'm going to hold your hand through the process, and we're here for the long term, and I care about your success. And I think because weight loss and health and all the things is so deeply personal, there has to be that trust that you build up, because there is so much snake oil out there. There are so many people promoting a magic solution. And realistically, it takes good, hard work. And it doesn't have to be expensive. You're absolutely right. So I think that's really, really interesting. And then Denise LeClaire added in on that series of comments. She said, you know, when someone finds something to relieve physical pain, it's worth every penny. It is, like, 100%. Like, if I could say, this is my goal, and you said, tell me you can help me get there, and you have a plan and you'll make sure that I stick to it, whatever that is, whether it's, physical therapy, chiropractor, weight loss, mind body connection, yoga, whatever this is. If you have a process and you're going to make sure that I understand how to do it, and then you're going to break it down for me, that's priceless. Um, but especially if you can do it and help me find a way to make it meet my budget, maybe have some different levels, like even better. Lisa P, whose name I am not going to try to pronounce on air, said that video production is too expensive. And so what I'm hearing here is there's a lot of challenge around cost. Like that's where people are challenging you. So um, I think the solution here is that it's one of two things. One, we either need to figure out a way to throw the value in there and really build it up. And some of that has to do with sales copy, right? So that you're talking about how you're going to help them do it, and building it up. And then it's like, oh, I can get it for that. Sweet, I'm in. So it's an easy yes and a no-brainer. And the other thing you have to do is build your value. Build the relationship, show why you are this person who has gotten all of these results. So whatever it is, video production, social media management, copywriting, like copywriting is a lot of times a pricey thing for a lot of people, but it doesn't mean that just because it's expensive doesn't mean it's not a high ticket service. Like, what are the results that you can promise? A travel agent, Valerie Jeffers, said that I get paid for doing the research and then they go book on their own. And, so part of that conversation is how it's priced out, right? Here's a really good one, that you have to show up on every single platform every single day. Not true. Not true at all. I think, and you will probably have similar opinions. Probably you'll argue with me on some of this. I think you pick the platforms you want to be on where your clients are, and you show up there on a regular basis, whatever that means for you. If that means you can show up on platform A, maybe it's Facebook daily, sweet, knock yourself out. If that means that you can show up once a week, stick with it. Just do it consistently, and people will start to you'll start to gain traction, is what I'm saying. But maybe it means, so if your audience is in Facebook groups and you're only showing up on Instagram, there's a disconnect, right? You're probably not getting in front of your ideal audience. Can you cross post, especially with some of the posting apps? Absolutely. Just make sure that you're doing it in a way that makes sense for the platform. So like Facebook doesn't really use a whole lot of hashtags. What does that mean? It means that you want to make sure that you're only posting those Instagram hashtags in that first comment. And I'm not going to get into like the best practices for where to put hashtags because I'm not the social media expert. I work with people who are. So there are some best practices and they seem to change. If that means that, your audience is on LinkedIn, that's where you should really be focusing most of your marketing time. If your audience isn't there, then push them back to Twitter, right? Or push them back wherever you're going to be. Just show up there as often as you can without making yourself crazy and without feeling like I'm doing all this work and it's not getting me money, because that's the worst feeling in the world. Marketing is plug and play, Abigail. Yeah, like it's not. It takes a while to build. And if you're starting out at ground zero, you've got to build some content banks. And I have a whole training on building content banks and using it to build consistency and to build brand awareness and to grow your sales. Words. So marketing isn't plug and play. You can't say, okay, it's not Mad Libs. You can't say this is this. It really takes, knowing your audience and where they hang out. It takes knowing what their pain points are And then it takes nailing in your offer and your messaging so that you're really solving for their pain points. Um, yeah, I think a lot of that's really important. I was talking to a gal last night who is a web developer, and she has a very specific niche. And so we were kind of chatting about some of the places she's showing up, what her sales process is, where some disconnects are. Um, and there's always opportunities. It may feel like you're doing everything. I mean, I've been there. Like, there's lulls. It's like, ups and downs as a service provider. And part of what we have to do is bake in that pipeline so that there's always pipeline so that you don't have those lulls. And that means doing a certain amount of biz dev. So where can you find these people? Maybe they hang out other places. Just because you get most of your business from a couple of groups doesn't mean that's the only place to get business. Maybe there's some other places that you can go. Like there's a ton of things that we can do to build this content plan. And it's a blend of working smarter, not harder, right? So you don't have to be this content gen machine. Like, one long form piece of content, whether it's a blog or an email or even this really meaty social media post, can then spawn a whole bunch of other things that you can repurpose. And that's like the other thing for showing up everywhere. Maybe you have a really awesome LinkedIn post, and you can then repurpose some of that content for some Twitter posts if you want to show up more places. Oh, good one, Haley Gray. That we lie. Marketers get a bad rap. Like, right? This is something that I'm constantly addressing too, because it's like they want someone who's extremely real, who can actually get them results. But either, there has to be this mix between personality, skill set, and know-how. And if it's not the right fit, it's not the right fit. But most marketers that I know don't lie. Most marketers don't promise results for a very specific reason. It's like, because there's so many other factors that go into it. How do you show up on your sales calls? How do you do all these other things? And we can coach you, but what the last thing we want to do is lie. We want to talk to you about potentials and opportunities, and we're going to present those to you. And marketers who are worth their salt will be upfront about what their process is, past results, what is realistic for you, what you can expect, and what the process of working together will be. So like when I'm working with people on their launch, I always want to manage their expectation that, your first launch is a lot of work, and you don't have to burn out. You don't have to exhaust yourself. But what you do need to know is that your first launch is so much work that you can feel like, man, I put in all this time. I only got 1 or 2 sales. That's a really successful launch for a lot of people for their first time, right? Oh, and here's Mac. He's back to say hi. He's on this side today. It mirrors on this video, so I don't always see it. Now he's back to the right side of my body. Yeah, he's like, hi y'all. But yeah, I think instead of talking about lying, I don't know how I'd manage that in the web copy, but I think I'd be very, very clear up front, like what realistic trajectories are. Like, how does it work? Is it iterative? Are these other things? What's the process? At what point do you usually expect to see an uptick in things? A few minutes left. So, Haley also said that one size fits all, even similar businesses. Yeah, you can't be everything to everyone. And why would you want to be, right? Why would you want to be everything to everyone? Why not figure out where you really want to plant your flag and stick with that? Like, I like to, I'm a copywriter and marketing strategist. I help with B2B. I do some B2C, but they tend to be high ticket services or high ticket products that look and feel very much like a service-based business, because it's all about the relationship. And that's so much of what I do. So I help people build relationships, and that's really where I shine. And the last couple are that it's easy and anyone can do it. A lot of what a lot of us do isn't rocket science, and anyone can learn it, but that doesn't mean that anyone wants to, or it doesn't mean that you shouldn't outsource it, right? So like bookkeeping is my example. I can figure it out. but I obsess over it and it's not the right thing for me. So why would I? Why would I not just pay someone to help me figure it out? And then I know that it's done right. I'm not going to stress about it. Or, another example is design. I did do my own website, but I had the help of some really amazing branding people to get the colors dialed in, to get some of the structure looking the way it's supposed to look, and some of those things. So that's really important. But my social media graphics, I have someone else do those because I will spend 6 hours obsessing over a graphic that's going to get lost in a day or two. And my VA Carrie is amazing, and she can like dash out like 15 in an hour. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I bow down, right? And is it maybe 100% the way I do everything? No, but it's off my plate and it's something I don't have to stress about. That passive income doesn't exist. Yeah. So it's interesting because that I want Denise to educate me on this, because I believe that passive income does still take work, but it's way more effective when you can do the work once and then it's a matter of getting up and being visible and turning the marketing machine on. And so there's things that you can do to create those funnels, but it generally, in my opinion, takes some work. So Denise, I really want to hear back from you, like, so I can bust that myth, right? I think that's, there's one other thing that I wanted to talk about, and that's Robin McMahon's, the SEO is an afterthought, not the foundation. So two more. Okay, I really want to hit two more. I have 4 minutes left, so I'm going to speak fast. SEO should be a factor in everything, like for your website. And with that in mind, you still want to make it speak to real humans. But if you come in armed with good SEO research, and I'm using website copy as an example, I'm sure there's other copies or other examples as well. Like I can factor in those pieces. I can factor in the SEO research into the copy. So I'm making sure to hit on it and it doesn't feel like I'm cramming keywords into something. And then you want a really good designer who can design the on-page part of your SEO. And then the ads don't work. Facebook ads are expensive. But if your audience isn't dialed in, if your offer isn't dialed in, it's not going to be as effective. They work extremely well to drive traffic and leads, but you have to make sure that what your offer is speaks to their needs. So I did a test just because I was curious. The last time I launched, I ran a whole bunch of ads to my lead magnet and I got a ton of leads, which was awesome. And I'll tell you more about that another time. But what I didn't, and then I also tested running ads directly to the course because I was like, why not, right? Every single person who has bought had some kind of relationship with me or with one of my friends or past students from the course. So it's just really interesting to see how that all ties together. So this has been a lot of fun to talk about busting myths. I want to continue the conversation. And I'm not going to be here tomorrow for the live. My daughter has a doctor appointment, like literally at the same time. But what I do want to do is continue this myth-busting conversation next Tuesday. So please, I will pop the thread into the comments here. I really want to hear more about your myths that you're busting, the misconceptions, because I think this is a really valuable topic. And I think there's a lot of ways that you can level up the way that you're showing up in your business. So cheers. Have a wonderful rest of your week, and I will catch you back here on Tuesday.